Hello. Welcome to another Paratopian Dispatch. PD, or it's very hard to pronounce PD as a word, but in Paratopia, we like to play games and have fun with words. We actually believe that, we believe that whether it's a coincidence or not, the fact that the word fundamental starts with the 3 letters that comprise the word fun. But it's important to have fun. What is life without fun? And the best work always has some fun in it. Even if it's got a lot of tedium and repetition and difficulty and hard stuff, you gotta, and it doesn't work just right. If there's no fun, then the work is not all that valuable. It just isn't much. All it is maybe doing the equivalent to what a machine does. There's a fellow up in Canada. His name is Michael something. I don't remember his last name, but he has a blog called the Great Work blog. Not great works as in literature, but great work. And he talks about great work as opposed to good work. And, I would recommend checking him out if he's still active. I think he is. But the basic distinction is that good work is doing a good job of the things that are already in place and doing it well, So a good worker in the subprime mortgage industry is the kind of person who's getting a lot of, is just getting the paperwork done and doing all the things and doing just the level of due diligence that's being required of them. We wouldn't think of somebody who blows the whistle on the whole thing as a great employee. But if somebody were to start, would have successfully, effectively, shaken people up, we wouldn't probably, who knows? That would have been great work. Great. I mean, usually, Michael doesn't really, he's not referring to that particular thing. That's a bit of a political issue that I personally keep coming back to. I mean, I find that, there are many hard workers in this world. And unfortunately, whereas they would like to work for good, they are in fact working for evil. Because they're part of large structures that perpetuate the lie that we cannot fight City Hall. It's a lie. We could do it. Our founding fathers, the framers of our Constitution, set up something way before their time, and for 230 years we have not fundamentally abrogated the Constitution, unlike in most other countries in the world that might have wonderful sounding constitutions, but it's just a bunch of BS, or maybe it was important at one time, but then somebody came along. I mean, I don't know what the constitutional framework of Weimar Germany was in the 1920s. I think it was a democratic system, but it was a weak one, and it was susceptible to people who were particularly good at lying and getting people to be angry, pointing the fingers at them. It's them, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. All we have to do is get rid of them, and everything will be right and fine. Well, that's just a cover for the people who want things, who want to take control. That's all. It's that simple. And It's been that way throughout history, and it will always be. And it's just a question of whether there are counterbalancing forces. I'm going to head on over to my seat over there. I'm going to do a little playing the keyboard, because that helps me think about what I've just said and about what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to do. But before I go, I'll just show you something. If I were to become a bandit, then you'd more easily be able to see where my T-shirt comes from. It wasn't fun getting that T-shirt, but since I did it, I got it with it by doing things that are myself. From my point of view, what I was doing was entirely legal. Everything that I've done was illegal. The people, legal. People who did illegal things are the people who put me there, and who are putting a lot of people whose basic crime is they're kind of stupid, and they're easily manipulated by people with badges and guns, who have the ability, who have quotas, and they gotta get a certain number of people. I mean, I don't mean official quotas, it's just that if they're not bringing in people with regularity, actually for all I know they do, because the jails need to be kept full. There are people who are making money off of each and every prisoner, and those people want the jails to be filled. We're not going to go there. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even started that. It makes my blood boil, So anyway, what we do, part of what we do when we do our dispatches and other, what we call parrotings. You can't quite see all of Bernie here, but here's a parrot head up there. If you haven't seen him before, can't change the angle of the camera from where I am. It's one of the things that I just realized I started playing the piano, but I haven't turned on the recorder. So there are two things I need to do, because I want to be able to capture a kind of view-zack. There's Muzak, there's Thought-zack, there's View-zack. View-zack is what I'm going to turn on, right? Let's see if I can get it to. Okay, there we go. Okay, it's on now. But I haven't turned. Now I also need to synchronize the recorder, so I need to get that line here so you can see it. And we're just going to turn it on. Here we go. Okay, that's important. And I need to do a little bit of playing on the piano while watching the monitor on here, just to make sure. See now, so what we do in, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, I'll be right back, don't worry. Don't go away. I mean, you could go away, but come back. Wait, Opie, where are you? Where's my little, what's the hammer doing in here? Maxwell's silver hammer. Of all hammers. Anyway, here we go. Here's, I guess, this is Boini. Boini is the model. Well, he's our mascot, I guess, is really the right word. I love you, Boini. He's a parrot. People say, well, I could put him on my these suspenders, wear him on my shoulder like this. People go, is that a real parrot? It happens a lot. And I say, yeah, I mean, it's a real stuffed parrot. A toy stuffed parrot. I mean, it's not made of an actual, the remains of a once living parrot. No, it's made of all new fabric. in Malaysia or something like. No, it's in China. What am I saying? Malaysia. What is made anywhere? I mean, where is anything made other than China? Except a couple of things. So Bernie could have been from Malaysia. It would make sense because they had models there, right? Probably birds look just like you in Malaysia. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time being serious. No, I know what it is. I just wanted to say when I said paratopia, it's parrot. Opia. The parrot is a symbol of actuality. As recorded, a parrot says back what you say. A recorder, such as the one that is actually, I can't point it out to you because it's way over there, and it's currently hooked up to the keyboard, but that's an audio recorder that, well, I've used it or several predecessors of it since about 2010 is when I started recording parts of my life, parts of my day, and I began to channel the main line of my thoughts out through my mouth because I had a recorder, and the recorder was there kind of saying, well, if you're ever going to listen to this, or if anybody else is going to listen to this, you got to make some sort of sense. You can't just be thinking a little bit and then go silent and then expect that when you then take it up later and all that silent thought was not made explicit, that anybody's going to understand what in the world that was all about. And yet, it happens. It definitely happens that you go silent for a lot of reasons when you're parroting, because you're getting engaged in a kind of thinking that is much better done when you're quiet. Or the focus on this is really having a problem. So I'm going to move back to the place where I was. I'll talk to you from back here where the focus is probably better, and where I can do something which I discovered as I began to parrot more and more. I actually wore I've had this for years, this around my neck. It's just a little neck heart thing that I've had the recorder here for years. I don't do it so much anymore, except when I'm going out and into public and thinking that maybe some interesting things might happen. So I use it for that now, and that can be very interesting. Because I think if you think about the things that have happened to you in your life, or rather the things that you do that you look back on later and go, oh boy, I wish I had just done it a different way. Frequently, the things that you're doing are done when, excuse me, I just realized the fan is on. The kinds of reactions or responses that you have, that you then later on look back and say, well, I wish I had said this, or didn't say this, or I'd done that, or blah, blah, blah. Yes, they're frequently things that you do when something has happened quickly, something that you just don't expect. That's when your kind of raw, habit-based thought processes are most likely to be fully engaged, because you're like knocked a little bit off kilter and you're not really sure what to do, so you do what you've done before. So that's why I find recording my life, I began to realize, holy cow, it's actually very helpful to me. But it's also rather interesting, some of the stuff. Now I do a lot of video parroting. It's definitely more involved. And I still do audio parroting a lot. And I would say that I parrot just about all the time, whether I'm recording or not, because the recording, while very, very helpful, it'd be silly not to. But parenting at its base is all about feedback. And the most valuable feedback that you can have is feedback in the moment. So that when you're in the middle of a situation that you've been thrown off, or something completely out of the blue has come up, you have enough you're capable of first of all taking in what's happening in an objective way, not a freak out kind of way. Because that's a sure way to make big mistakes, is when you freak out in response to something. You want to be able to respond with your intelligence. And unless you absolutely must move in the moment, like somebody's about to get run over by a car, unless you run and jump and push them out of the way, and hopefully you get out of the way too, and then you're a hero. And if you don't get out of the way, you're dead. Well, you're a martyr, but except that you might not really have wanted to be. So, that kind of high, that super high intensity, I'm not talking about, that's not the norm. But it is common to be kind of going along in your day-to-day, moment-to-moment business, and then all of a sudden, and it's usually a person, although it can be things, all of a sudden come out of the clear blue, or it's somebody but all of a sudden they're talking to you about something, or that you really didn't want to talk about, or it bothers you, or gee, how do you find out about that? I thought, do you mean the one person I told I can't trust? So learning to respond better in unusual situations, it is very much helped by being able to take in what's happening, both what's happening from the outside as well as your own response. And if you were recording, then at least you're going to get, if it's some kind of dialogue, you've got the words, and you've got the tone of voice, you've got the pauses, and you've got the, if there's anger, going back and forth, or whatever it is, condescension, resentment, or, the other thing that's really scary to people. Oh my gosh. What if you decide you think you might actually like this person in that sort of way? I think we're taught a bunch of lies about love. Hollywood kind of nonsense. I decided to start doing as one of my many parroting projects. A parroting project is something, a realization that, oh my gosh, every time I interact with some authoritarian figure, I start to get so defensive that it's obvious that they got me and that they can really wind me around their little finger. It's been a problem my whole life. So I decided it's very important to work on that, on saying, okay, this person who's in a position of authority may have actual legitimate aspects of their position, and they may also be being the kind of people that so many people in positions of authority really are, people who like to boss other people around, people who like to impose and intrude. There are people like that. And most importantly, people want to feel that they're on top. They've won and you've lost. So that's been a very important thing for me to have in my neurological functioning. In other words, the things that go on in our neurological system, our brain, well, let's say our mind. The brain is the physical part. And the brain, even though we think of the brain as only being inside our head, the brain really isn't just inside our head, it's throughout our entire body. It's got those, that's the way the brain gets all sorts of information about the body, is by having all these connections throughout absolutely throughout the entire body. And a very interesting little tidbit, factoid, is that out of the trillions with T-R, billions, not billions, trillions of nerve cells that we have in our bodies, it still is mind-boggling. Last time I tried to count to 1 trillion, it didn't work. But anyway, of the trillions of nerve cells, or neurons, actually neuron is sort of the more way of saying it. So let's use neurons, but I'll say nerve cells too from time to time. Of the trillions and trillions of neurons that are in our body, half of them, well, wait, I'm sorry. There are as many inside our digestive system as there are inside of our head. And that's like, whoa, really? Our digestive system? Well, if you think about it, our digestive system is incredible. We put into our bodies all sorts of things. A lot of this and not much of that. And a mix, all sorts of things. But our bodies have specific needs. Our bodies need exactly certain things, not other things. So we're able to put in just about anything into our body, and our body's going to extract what it needs from that, which is there's a lot to that. A real lot. And so we're talking about trillions of nerve cells or neurons that are controlling that incredible process. So much of our neurological system is not even stuff that we can think of. In fact, I don't know 99.9999 or something percent of everything that goes on in our minds, we certainly don't have words for. We might have visual memories or auditory memories, but it's mainly verbal is what when we think of our consciousness, it's mainly the verbal stuff. But whatever else we do that we can be aware of, well, that's all part of our neurological system. But then there are also these things that we're not even aware of. But we wouldn't be anywhere if they weren't happening. If actual intelligence were not happening. It's just the very top little layer is our human intelligence. And it's very incredible. And I mean, actually, that from a physical standpoint, human intelligence actually has a whole bunch more brain mass than other animals, even the smart ones like dogs, very smart animals. but they don't have that entire verbal piece. And the verbal piece is how we can even say to ourselves, well, I'm here, as opposed to not here. Dogs they don't bother with that. Yeah. That's why they're such good lovers. They're so lovable. All that is to say that we are creatures of our neurological system, or creations of. I mean, we just wouldn't even have any consciousness. We wouldn't do anything, nothing. I mean, all animals have a neurological system. Though all animals except humans are not, sitting around thinking, well, why am I here? What's after the end of time? Or, the universe, it goes on and on forever. Wait, what do you mean forever? What does that mean? What are you talking about, baby? There's got to be something on the other side. There are a lot of things like that we just really don't understand, and we don't really need to understand those things to get on with our life. What we need to understand to get on with our life is what works and what doesn't work. And we do more of what works, except we don't apply what works to things that are not applicable, which is a common mistake that we all make. We say, oh, I can do this now, so then we go and do it again and again, and then we do it at a time when, this time I now realize afterwards that, oh boy, that really wasn't a good idea what I just did. So we make that mistake, and then we make the opposite kind of mistake, in which we learn something and go, yeah, I wish I wouldn't, say, in my case, talk too much. And then parroting has helped me learn more about, when do I talk too much? I want to make sure the person doesn't seem to understand me, so I talk more and more, which I then realized later that makes it harder. If I would just stop, first of all, the person might have already heard everything they want to hear from me, period. Or they might be interested in what I'm saying, but I've already said more than their minds might be on other things. And I'm often not the easiest person to understand in the base case. So that's one reason why I talk too much. Another reason, start off saying something and then it wasn't exactly what I meant, so now I've got to say, no, I didn't mean it this way, I meant it that way. Oh my gosh. And it's taken me a very long time to realize, oh man, why don't I just stop? And so what I've learned is that there are many different situations in which I might find myself talking more than I want to, in a counterproductive way. I mean, I want to communicate with somebody. I don't want them to go, oh, I can't, looking at their watch. It's like, how am I going to get away from this guy? So, again, very important for me to learn to recognize the kind of situations in which I am likely to, or I'm already in the situation where I've got that urge to keep talking. And if I can recognize it, as soon as I recognize it, if I have practiced this idea that, oh, if I recognize that I'm talking too much, there are some very simple ways of dealing with it. It's not a real difficult thing as long as I am convinced in my own mind that it would be good for me to shut up. A paratopian technique for moving on when you're stuck. When you're doing the same thing, it's not working, or you're just tired, and you're not sure what to do. Well, the standard technique of parators is to do what we call multi-modalize. And I just kind of demonstrated it to you because I was talking, and then I sort of recognized that I was getting into a rut, feeling this urge to keep explaining myself. Explain why I just said too much. Not really the best way to go. So, at that point, when I realized just now how much I was stuck. Even though I'm telling you about talking too much, and I'm talking too much. So that's a time to take a little bit of a break and go into a different modality. Playing keyboard. Couldn't do it. Couldn't play any instrument. Other than strumming the guitar, I could do an okay job just strumming to accompany myself singing. I sang to my kids a lot at bedtime. I wasn't a great singer. In fact, until very recently, I didn't understand how to listen for pure pitch. I just didn't know. I couldn't figure it out. And now I still don't quite always get it, but at least I know what I'm after. And actually, these days, I'm doing okay. Again, I'm not that fine-tuned in my ability to get that pitch and hold it perfectly. No, though I am getting better. So, since I turned 50, I began to sing. I began to dance, began to play the piano, and that's when I started. This was all sort of on the side because I thought of myself as an adult education teacher. That's what I had done a lot of my life. And then I went back to school when I was almost 50 to get a degree in mind-body therapy from a state university of New York, downstate medical centers, and it was a science degree, a master's of science, and it was rigorous. We started off in gross anatomy, dissecting humans. They were dead. And we didn't have to kill them or anything, they were just already dead. But this program, which is actually not called mind body therapy, by the way, but I believe that that's the way it should be called. That's what it is. That's what I got a degree in, learning about the body first, really, then really getting into kinesthesiology. I mean, how do the muscles make this happen, and what are the forces, and where do the forces go, and how do the joints look, and what happens when they get injured and the cartilage gets worn away, and then what happens when a person has an injury and does not understand how to rehabilitate themselves. So they have, a very classic thing of people with a bum knee from, my next door neighbor played a lot of basketball when he was younger, and he apparently once or more than once, smashed his left knee. Not shattered or anything, but just really hurt it. Came down on it or something. But while he was still a kid, and it wasn't a really big deal, but it must have done something to the cartilage, which didn't really bother him until he was in his 30s. And then it started really bothering him. So he, like most people who don't have the benefit of a qualified mind-body therapist, and actually I'm being I think people should learn about their bodies in physical education. The stuff that I learned in school, I learned a lot of the finer points, but it's actually pretty simple. It's pay attention to your frickin' body or else you're gonna suffer. That's pretty much what it's all about. And anybody who's spent much time going to yoga classes or otherwise practicing yoga, you know that so much of yoga is just about exactly that. Just get to know your body. Get to know how far up and how far back can your arm go. What does it feel like when you go? And is this really as far back as you can go, or can you? Its muscles are loosening up. Which, when you go in school, in the master's program, I learned about how we have what are called spindle cells inside our muscles. These are also known as stretch receptors. They are aware, as they get stretched, they send a signal to, not all the way up to the brain, but to the reflexes down in the spinal cord, which are much faster, because it's pretty direct, and they, or sometimes, I'm not sure, they might even be out of the spinal cord, I'm not sure about that. But these are reflexes that are very quick. So the spindle cells, when they get stretched out, they send a message which basically is, whoa, I'm getting stretched out, and it's okay to get stretched out at a certain speed and so far. But hey, if I don't slow myself down and I go too far or too fast without any support, I'm likely to hurt myself, especially at the joints. So even something like, if I go like that, I'm not aware of the fact that I was stopped, that my arm see, when I did this, these muscles are getting stretched. And they are, as they get stretched, the more they get stretched, the more my arm actually slows down on its own. It's a remarkable thing. But if you think about it, if you didn't have anything like that, you got all the momentum of the arm goes like that, and right down here, it's a joint where the bones come together. And if you go too far, that's where you're going to start tearing things or wrecking the cartilage or so on. So we don't realize it, but it's part of our neurological system saying, slow down, slow down, slow down. You just can't go faster than a certain speed. so we learned, so I realized, why am I bringing this up? It's an example of where we can look at it at a pretty scientific level and study the neurons and so on, how they work, the physiology of the neurons or nerve cells. But, you know what I just told you? A kindergartner can be told that. Well, maybe not a kindergartner, maybe a 4th grader, 6th grader. Certainly high school students should not only know that this happens, but they should know what the word physiology means. It's just a basic thing. It's like, you know, okay, physiology is the chemical processes that make things work. Anatomy are the structures. We have these nerve cells, but what goes on in the nerve cells is the physiology, and that's everything for us. I mean, if we didn't have physiology, nothing would happen. You know, we'd be a lump of flesh that's going to get eaten up pretty quickly, because flesh that doesn't defend itself gets eaten. It's just normal by whatever. You know, vultures or microorganisms, hyenas in Africa. My wife and I went on a safari in Africa. Yeah, watched I think it was a zebra. No, maybe a wildebeest had been killed by some lions. And boy, you know, the lions went and ate and were enjoying themselves, and then they started getting full. And that's when the other kind of animals that are just waiting around, I mean, all the vultures are circling and waiting for the lions to, you know, say, okay, I don't really care what you guys do with the carcass anymore. I've eaten as much as I can eat. And then the hyenas come out, and the jackals, and whoever else, and it's amazing, and they fight over it. Pretty interesting stuff. But anyway, that's, of course, neither here nor there. It's nothing to do with neurology. Well, once you're dead, I guess that's the point. Once you're dead, you're just at the mercy of whatever, baby, you know. But when you're alive, there's so many things that are happening to keep you alive. And boy, school doesn't teach us crapola about our own bodies. What kind of stupid thing, physical education? Go play basketball while we sit around and make fun of the kids that we don't like. You know, that might not be the typical gym teacher, phys ed teacher, but it was in my high school. Oh my gosh, a bunch of turkeys. Really, just idiots. I really liked my gym teacher in elementary school. She was really neat. She's a very different kind of thing. And but you know, she was not taught to teach kids anything about their bodies. Especially in health, we learned that. And then health is, you know, whatever. I mean, health is, it's part of physical education, and it should be much more. We should understand our bodies. So anyway, that's what parroting. Well, let's back up to my training, mind-body therapy. That's what it's about, understanding your own body and realizing that there are these things that are going on inside you, some of which you have you can be aware of, and you can change. You can say, I don't want it to be this way, I want it to be that way, and you have this ability. And you think about yogis who sleep on a bed of nails. There's a bit of a trick to it, because what they're doing is they're evening out their weight over all those nails, and so even though it might hurt in many places, if you even it out your weight, the nails will not go through your skin, because no one place on your body has the like one single nail you sit on and it's going to go through, but you got a whole bed of nails and it won't. So those people who manage to do that, or walk across fire, or walk on ashes, or burning fire, well, they do toughen up their feet. Their feet have really thick soles, which they've learned. They've done it. they've just conditioned themselves. So they actually have gotten their body, by a mindful act. They get an intentional act through some of this yogic practice. They've done this kind of thing whereby they've experienced the intense heat of the fire that they're walking through, or the bed of nails. They've experienced the pain, and they've said, pain, okay, you're there. Okay, it hurts. Our bodies have an incredible ability to adjust, to accommodate to things like pain. So that if you have pain, chronic pain, if you fight it and you keep making it's your excuse for not doing anything, well, chronic pain is going to make you more and more disabled, and you're going to be in more and more pain. But if you're a person who says, well, I've got this pain, and I'm going to do a couple of things. One is, let me put my finger here. One is accept it. Because you don't really have a choice, so you might as well accept it. And getting angry at it and getting tense is one sure way, physically tense. And if you're nervous, tense, and if you're nervous kind of tense, well, guess what else gets tense? Your body gets tense. A tense body is a body that is putting pressure on those places where the pain is. So it makes it worse. So if you don't accept it, you say, I'm going to fight this pain, I don't like it, it's not fair, why does God have to do this to me, blah, 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 blah. You're most likely going to get angry. Getting angry is a good way to increase the pressure on those places where there's already pain, and pain definitely gets worse with pressure. So that's one thing you can do. And the other thing is learn about what's going on. And a lot of pain that's of the the musculoskeletal system, in other words, pain in our joints or muscles or, your back, a lot of those, our way of moving our bodies, both in regular movements as well as exercise, or therapeutic exercise. That's something people should do. And everybody, by the time they get out of high school, they should know about the idea that you are able to help your body heal much better than if you're aware of what the needs are for your body, than if you just say, oh, it hurts to put a lot of weight on my left knee, and now I realize I kind of lost my neighbor who played basketball, hurt his left knee, and so he was limping around for a long time, and because he did not have the benefit of the kind of just basic intelligence that should be taught to everybody, he wound up, and he was a busy guy, he's a teacher at a middle school, rough, kind of hard job he's got. And then he became dean, so, walking around doing a lot of stuff, a lot of tense situations and so on. In a city, this is not it's in Brooklyn, and not a great school. So a lot of kids and a lot of special needs kids too, where he worked, and still works there. And so for over a number of years, this knee just bothered him all the time, and he did sort of the natural thing, which was to change his way of walking to minimize the amount of weight and pressure and pain on the knee. So he finally got to the point where it was time to get a knee replacement in his left knee. And but unfortunately, by the time he got that, it was very clear that his right knee was now undergoing its own breakdown due to those years of walking wrong on his right knee, coming down the wrong way every single time he comes. Instead of coming down straight down, maybe he's coming down this way to kick, to do something to balance so that there's less weight on his left leg. His right leg was, without him realizing it, was doing something that kept, grinding away, hitting one place, and that place now now he needs another knee replacement. And it's very conceivable that if he had gotten good guidance early on, if he had gone into his 30s, knowing that people who start to experience, especially a sports injury from earlier on, or anything else, when you have an injury, when you're a kid or a teenager, your body is already in the mode of building new tissue. It just kind of, whatever goes wrong, it pretty much recovers up to a point. And whereas that same level of injury when you're 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 is going to take a lot longer. I mean, it won't do it. It doesn't do it by itself because you're not growing anymore. You have to do something consciously, regularly, consistently. You've got to go to somebody who really does have a very good understanding of the structure of your knee or whatever the injury is, and who's going to say, okay, remember, you got to be walking symmetrically. If that means using a cane to take the weight off your bad knee, so be it. Use that cane and keep exercising. Do not stop using your left leg. Use it fully, and if you gotta feel pain, feel some pain. If it's excruciating, well, okay, that's too much. But it's very important to keep using all of your joints throughout the entire normal range. And the normal range is something that you should be exercising to keep as much as possible, If you ever see somebody just doing this while they're sitting around waiting for something, and then they go and do this, well, what are they doing? They're doing therapeutic exercise. Somewhere along the line they learned that it's important to keep all of your joints, all of them. So then you can do this, and around, and this way, and up, and over, like this, and all I'm doing is going as far as I can go, not too hard, not too fast, knowing that usually you can go, this is where those stretch receptors that I talked about earlier are so important, because when you go quickly, the stretch receptors say, okay, tighten up, so that you don't go too far. And then when you get to the end and you in fact have more room, and your muscles actually can stretch. And it's not just the muscles, the tendons that connect the muscles to the bone. Sometimes tendons connect muscles to other muscles, but then there's ligaments that just go from bone to bone. So those are the things that can tighten up and will tighten up after you have an injury. And so if you have an injury and by the time it stops hurting, weeks later, months later sometimes, many months later sometimes, it can. When you get older and you twist an ankle or something, where the neck, you hurt your neck, and boy, it could take a very, very long time to stop hurting. But the worst thing you could possibly do is go around, saying, well, if I do this, it hurts, so I'll do this all day long. And that way I'll avoid pain. I won't feel any pain, the pain that I get from doing that. Oh boy, that's a bad thing, because all you're doing is now setting up an asymmetry over here. You're getting this tight. And and the body is very, I heard this term my freshman year in college in a science class that was meant for liberal arts students. And the professor is an older guy who had a great routine where he got up. This is a huge lecture hall, and a science lecture hall, so at the bottom is this big long table for chemistry experiment, big slab kind of table. He wanted to demonstrate the effect of neurotoxic pesticides on insects, and he gets up on the table on this big counter, and he gets on his back. Well, he starts out like on all fours, and then he starts to have all these spasms, and he's explaining how the neurotoxins are doing these spasms, and then he winds up turning over on his back and then finally dying. He got a standing applause for that. I think that's his trick. Every semester he does it once. But anyway, he brought up a term that I always remember. He said this is a fundamental, it's almost a law of, or just a general thing that happens, or principle in nature. In nature, he said, is parsimonious. Parsimonious means kind of like being a cheapskate, where it doesn't do more just for the heck of it. It does more in response to a need to do more. And so, back to the neck injury thing, and it hurts every time you do this. So you sort of get in the habit of holding it over here, your body's going to say, oh, well, you never stretch this muscle out. Well, I might as well make the muscle shorter, because there's no need to have a long muscle if it's never stretched out. A shorter muscle uses fewer resources. It's easier to maintain a smaller, shorter muscle, and they're strong because they're really short. The problem with really strong, short muscles is that if you really need to go, you really have to move your head the other way. Really, you have to move it, and you got this tight muscle. Well, and what's going to happen is that muscle is tight and short, and it doesn't want to expand, which means it's going to yank its anchorage, where the tendons from the muscle attach to the bone. It's going to yank on them, and it's going to pull them off, or it's going to pull the joint so that that something's going to happen. You really don't want short, tight muscles. You want long, flexible muscles. Muscles that are able to take an extra, okay, whoa, I hit my hand too hard, and all of a sudden I'm going further, than normal. This would be a common thing. You fall down, you put your hands out. Well, there could be a difference between breaking a hand and not breaking a hand. The muscle, the wrist, based on how tissue is. If it's all super tight, then everything is yanking on everything else. Whereas if it's got some limberness in it, the bones can kind of move a little bit. Like say the bones of the joint can move like this instead of being. This bone can move away instead of pulling the other bone. And anyway, that's flexible is what we want. So, I need to know how long we've been going. Okay, almost an hour. Usually our Paratopian dispatches are 1 hour long. I want to mention that this particular one, I'm talking to you, April, and I told you I would. Well, I didn't tell you I would. I know, because I've learned not to promise. Just do it. If it's in my mind, I'm going to talk to you. I did say I would have. I've asked you to go online after 9, so this will be available after 9, so you can see it. And I'm thinking about you. In the way that I've thought about a lot of people who I've had business with over the phone. And I've been thinking about how people have such a hard time communicating. frequently when I'm talking to people, especially somebody working for the kind of company you work for, because the kind of dealings I have with your company, it's a logical thing for me to start talking about what I do. And what I've learned is I have to learn to be careful and not say too much. Tool it's an acronym that's actually a cognitive tool, because an acronym is a phrase, right? A few words put together. So words, if you think of a word as a tool, well, it's a concept. It's an idea that you had that has some kind of application. That's what makes it a tool. You could use it for this. It will help you. Don't use it for that. It won't help you. But it will help you for this. So, in my case, since having this tendency to keep talking and getting myself in trouble, because actually it hit me as I was talking to you, April. I just wanted, really all I wanted to do is say hello to you. And no. I mean, I'm getting a little mixed up as I'm talking right now. Stiffen. Stiffen. That was the first acro tool. And it was a tool that was saying, do this when that happens. I then later changed it to say, hey, that's happening. So, what's happening? Well, remember I said there are different kinds of things. I'm realizing that the person doesn't understand me, so I keep talking, or that I'm nervous, that I'm not going to get what I want, so no, or that this person thinks I'm an idiot, or whatever. Or that I just said something stupid and I want to kind of retract it. Whatever. And what I learned, I developed an acro tool, GTD, getting too detailed. And that applies to just any of the situations. I mean, whatever is causing the situation. If I can say to myself, let me use the word getting too detailed, it's not really judgmental. It's merely saying, you're talking about too much. And that helps me. It's better than saying stop being stupid. You're getting stupid. That's a judgment, which at times might be the right one, but something like to say getting too detailed, it's kind of generic. It's saying for whatever reason, whether it's because you're being very smart and or very thorough, you're trying to explain, that's not a bad reason. It's just maybe this is not the time. It's not going to work this time with this person I'm talking to. So for whatever reason, getting too detailed is my current acro tool. I like to think of my friend Boiney, Boiney from Brooklyn. That's why he's Boiney, not Bernie, but I say Bernie. He says Boiney. But anyway, he sits on my shoulder, whether he's actually there or not. It doesn't really matter since he's just a stuffed bird. I can just pretend he's, hi Bernie, how are you? Oh, I'm getting too detailed? Because he sits there and goes, GTD, GTD, and I go, okay. So zip it could have been my first one, but actually, you see, before I came up with getting too detailed, which again is, okay, some acro tools are more about the situation in which you are likely to do this, make the same mistake you've made many times. because it's a habit. 99.9% of everything we do is habit. It's just that little bit where we can say, we're going to do it, I'm going to choose to do something differently than I normally do it. And that's where growth is. So, acro tools can either be about the situation. Oh, yeah, well, in this case, okay, getting too detailed, which again, as I said before, covers lots of things. And then I said, I don't need to be so specific. All I need to do is say, you're getting too detailed, and you know what to do then. Sometimes it might take you a moment, but you'll get there. Relax. In fact, that's one of the most important things you could always do. Almost always. If you have a moment, you don't have to run out in the street and save some kid's life who's about to get run over by a car. If it's not that kind of emergency, you do have time and to take a breath. Wow, it's powerful. It's the first one I've done in this recording. I probably should have done it a number of times along the way, and perhaps I would have been less like a little pushy in my own mind, push myself out there, and like even deciding to say hello to you. I decided I wanted to say hello to you, April, and not get into any sort of complicated thing. And then you heard me starting to get into one complicated aspect and another, because my whole history of talking with people and telling people about what I'm doing, and most people think I'm just crazy. So that's been a difficult thing for me, and I made the mistake of thinking, well, because this person is way on another, hundreds of miles away or thousands of miles away, they're probably bored. They seem very happy to listen to me talk about what I'm doing. But I've learned that that doesn't mean I should therefore burden them with blah, 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 blah. So we're going to just finish up. And then I'm going to say goodbye, because it's over an hour, and that's sort of an hour and 2 minutes from the time we started that, and this started a little earlier, so it's more than that. Of course, we're going to edit things out. That's basically what we do. We just kind of say, well, at this point, is there anything here that really needs to be taken out because it's either boring or repetitive or completely unintelligible, that we take stuff out? Otherwise, we leave it in. And we figure, if you're still listening after an hour, well, hey, thank you. And if you're not, you're not. So it's no big deal one way or the other. Which, of course, is very different from if I cornered you on the street and talked to you for an hour. That's a lot more of a problem. So anyway, that word anyway, I'm working to recognize that I could just be quiet, take a deep breath. Instead of saying anyway, I go, and during that time, instead of hearing myself say anyway and think, why am I saying anyway? That doesn't mean anything. It's just a filler. Fill the space, the time, with a relaxing, helpful action, that if you do it, you're also giving your audience that moment. And the suggestion, I'm taking a moment to breathe deeply, all the way in, and then all the way out, which can go a lot longer. If you keep talking, you will realize that you can keep going for a lot longer than you imagine. Even when you think you're getting to the end, you really actually have more and more and more and more and more. And you could keep going for a long, long time. And sometimes you feel like, oh my God, there can't be any more left. But in fact, there is. And you keep going and you keep going. And then you all of a sudden, oh wow. And then when you breathe in after that long breath out, well, when you breathe out and you truly work to squeeze your lungs, you're squeezing out all the old stale air that's full of carbon dioxide and other old stuff. And then when you breathe in, you're breathing fresh air. Your whole body feels like almost a rush. It's not like hyperventilating. It's, wow, I have plenty of oxygen. And since that's so, it's like having gasoline in the car. Well, it's like having a carburetor or air intake in a car that's giving, well, it's like having a supercharger, a turbocharger, which is getting even more oxygen So yeah, you can have all the gasoline in the world, but if you don't have oxygen, it ain't gonna burn well. It's the same thing, pretty much. Our gasoline in our bodies are carbohydrates or fats, but the fats get turned into carbohydrates, and the carbohydrates have to get made into the kind of sugar that our cells can use, and that's what insulin is all about. And that's why when people eat all sorts of fat stuff, and their livers start to get all filled with fat globules, those fat globules get in the way of the body's ability to take the insulin that it does make it, but it goes through all these changes as it goes from the inside of the liver out. And people with type 2 diabetes, they are not getting enough insulin. Even though their body's making it, their body is not getting it properly because it's being blocked by the fat in the liver. But anyway, that's our fuel. The oxygen. I'm sorry, did I say oxygen? I meant sugars. The sugar is the fuel. Oxygen in our bodies is just like oxygen in a car, except it doesn't actually, blow up. The oxygen and the sugar form energy that can be, there's energy, and then with the oxygen and the cells that need to do something. Every single thing that gets done in our metabolism, everything every cell does requires energy. The energy comes from the sugar, and it needs oxygen. So, a nice deep breath, and you're just saying, hey, whatever you need, all the cells throughout your body, you need some oxygen, I got plenty for you. You don't have to wait or anything, it's there. It's boom, my whole body's like infused with oxygen. Just as, after I fill up my lungs and that much fresher air gets into my system, that much larger percentage of oxygen gets in to the blood. And your whole body feels, oh, I got some more energy than I had before. So taking that breath, instead of saying anyway, shut up and take a breath. That's suatab. S-U-A-T-A-B. Shut up and take a breath. Now that is the other kind of acro tool. Remember I said the GTD is an acro tool that's about the situation. I'm getting too detailed. So what do I do about it? Shut up. But I have other, I actually have thought about, the way to do it with social grace. I can kind of save face, I've just said something stupid, and so, make a joke of it. Okay. Or just come right out and say, I'm sorry, that was the most stupid thing I just could have imagined saying. I don't know where it came from. Period. Now let's move on. But the acro tool I use now is the one that says, this is the situation, you're getting too detailed. The one that was before it, before I realized that I had all these different reasons that got me there, get me too detailed and were likely to talk too much. Before I could quite get that, I went through a period in which I was going, I know I should stop. I know I should shut the F up, man. And so that was my first acro tool on that line, and it was a directive. Whatever it is, you recognize that it's time to stiff them. Stiff them. S-T-F-U-M. Shut the F up, man. Okay? And at first, I had to yell it out loud if there was nobody around. When I realized that I was just going on and on and on, and this is not even talking with this is talking to a camera or just talking to my recorder. Going on and on. What's the matter? I've got this compulsion to keep talking. So shut the F up, man! Stiff him! And that was very effective. And I used that until I said, let me go a little softer on myself. Be nice to myself, go, okay, it's all right. You've got a habit, it's a very long-standing habit to talk too much. Yeah, people think you're a wacko cool because you talk too much. Okay, don't worry about it. You're not dead yet, which means you can learn. And on that, I'm going to say goodbye. But, oh, okay, I forgot. Got to make a label after this. The label will be our new one. Shut up and take a breath. Suatab. Yes, that's a new acro tool, which I've been doing it for quite a while, but this will make it even more explicit. Every time I say anyway, or want to say anyway, I either can say it out loud, shut up and take a breath, or I could just do it. Because the amount of time it takes to say anyway, if I use that time to just take even just a moment, even if I don't take a deep breath, just okay. And I don't have to say okay or anything. I just blah 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 blah. That little bit of a pause is very important. So that's that label. Yeah, let's just make it. So this is a PD, a paratopian dispatch, and then we use 2 lowercase l's as a separator. So PD, paratopian dispatch. So that's an acro word. PD is the acronym, and paratopian dispatch are the 2 words that the acronym PD stands for. So we write it as lowercase p, lowercase d, and then capital P, paratopian, and a capital D, dispatch. And then we use separators. We do not use punctuation. We use acro punctuation for the most part. But when on a label, which is actually partly often a file name, that's actually where it all started. Why we started to not use punctuation marks. We use letters. So, and that's so that we can include these labels in file names without changing them. We're really careful. We're the code that allows us to build on new ideas and share them, so that the acro tools are a kind of code, and it can be extended to all sorts of other things. But okay, anyway, in the file name, the name of this dispatch, this paratopian dispatch, it starts off with the date, so 14, not 2014, just 14. It'll be a problem in Y3K, but you know what? I don't give a crap about what happens in Y3K. Really, I don't expect it's going to matter. That we leave off the 20, like they left off the 19, and billions, and really, I don't know how much you know about what went on during Y2K, but my wife happened to be involved in some of the efforts. That billions and billions of dollars were spent just because of those 2 bytes that were not put in ever. The 19. So it was 6. This stuff started out in the 40s, the 50s. You say you want a year, but we don't need to say 1957 because this code won't exist in the year 2000. Well, the problem was that that's true. No code from 1957 was still in existence in the year 2000, but the same conventions that were used in 1957 were still used in 1988 because we still had programs that had this old stuff, and if it would have been a big pain to go and make sure that these old programs could work with the new programs, so nobody wanted to go make the effort to make sure that to put those 2 more bytes in, even when at first memory was super expensive, so 2 bytes mattered. 2 bytes now? 2 bytes? Well, how much I just bought a 1 terabyte drive for $65. That's 65 cents per gigabyte? Wait a minute. Megabyte? Whatever, 65 cents. There's 1,000. Yeah, it's 6.5 cents. What am I saying? 6.5 cents per gigabyte. gigabyte. Billion bytes? And people were worried about 2 bytes. 1, 2. Not 2,000 or 2 million or 2 billion. 2, 1, 2 bytes. And that's what the Y2K thing was all about. And we're worried about, everything not working and boggle boogle and blah gaga. At midnight, December 31st, 1999. I guess midnight is January 1st, 2000. Anyway, but after billions of dollars were spent, no big deal happened. Because it was fixed. I mean, it was the kind of thing that could be fixed, but it was kind of silly that people waited. But that's the way people are, isn't it? So, I need to finish with how we are labeling this thing. So, got off on the Y2K thing because we say the year 1408, August 19, then space, and then PD, Paratopian Dispatch. After a while, we'll just say PD. And if you want to know what PD means, you could go back a little and find out, PD is Paratopian Dispatch, which in and of itself, most people, you wouldn't know it unless you go, that's just when some paratopian blabs for an hour and dispatches it out quickly. Okay, but then when so there are 2 things in this. It's paratopian dispatch, and then we have a separator, which is 2 lowercase l's, which is like 2 straight lines, but use the L, lowercase l. So 2 straight lines, vertical lines, says that what's after that is a different thing. So we've got the date, space, and then a label, PD, Paratopian Dispatch, and then a space, and then 2 L's, and then another space. So that's the 2 L's are just a separator. From here, then there are 2 L's, and then there's something over here. And what's on the other side is the acro tool that I came up with today. Suatab, right? Shut up and take a breath. That's it, suatab. Okay?